vote on each agenda item following a public hearing. Use variance requests require a minimum of 6 affirmative votes in order to grant the requested variances. Non-use variance requests require a minimum of 5 affirmative votes in order to grant the variances. Please note that any order of the board is valid for a period of 1 year. If you would like to request the board table or adjourn your case due to the absence of a full board, you must inform the chairperson immediately after public hearing. As you can see, we have a full board tonight. Petitioners shall do their best to limit presentations to 10 minutes. Each participant in a public hearing shall do their best to limit comments to 3 minutes. All right, as stated, we have a full board. For the approval of minutes for September 12th, 2024, is there any amendments or motions for approval?
I'll move to approve.
Is there a second? Okay, Mr. Clanton. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right. Minutes have been approved. Going under unfinished business, we have case number 24-08-24. Whenever you're ready.
Thank you. This subject cites a corner lot located at the southeast corner of Mount Vernon Boulevard and North Washington Avenue. And the site currently contains a single-family house in which the petitioner is proposing to demolish and construct a new single-family house with an attached garage, which is going to be accessed off of North Washington Avenue. This case was previously heard at the August 2024 meeting, in which the board did vote to postpone this item to October. The initial proposed house in that configuration contained 5,348 square feet of usable floor area, and the attached garage contained 921 square feet of ground floor area. So at the time, the petitioner was initially requesting a variance to waive 1,848 square feet from the maximum allowable 3,500 square feet of usable floor area, and then a second variance to waive 121 square feet from the maximum allowable 800 square foot accessory building ground floor area cap. Since that meeting, the petitioner has modified their plans, which did decrease the size of the usable floor area of the house. More specifically, the second floor opening to the lower level was converted into unfinished attic space, which can be deducted from the usable floor area calculations. And then on top of that, several rooms on both the first and the second floor were reduced in size. So this results in a smaller variance request for variance A, which now becomes 995 square foot variance request. The petitioner has not elected to make any changes to the dimensions or the sizes of the attached garage, so variance B would remain the same as the previous request. So, as always, I would encourage the board to remember and consider the non-use variance criteria as you come to a decision. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for staff? Yes, Ms. Hukin.
Alex, was the exterior dimensions changed at all?
Yes, with the modifications, it did slightly alter the footprint of the house as well. One thing I would point out is that total lot coverage did actually shrink slightly. With the old set of plans, total lot coverage was 16.8%. With this new iteration, it would be 15.6%, which is a 1.2% decrease.
Okay, Mr. Clark.
And Alex, just to be clear, what's the lot coverage allowed in this lot?
It would be 30%.
And Alex, just really quick for the record, what is the total number of square feet that the house is?
Let me check the.
It says
4,495. Yeah, the total usable floor area with the modified plans is 4,495 square feet.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All right, seeing none, the petitioner may come forward and speak.
Mr. Chairman and members of the Zoning Board of Appeals, my name is Dennis Cowan, and I'm representing Rachel and Jacob Claude, who are here this evening, along with our architect of record, Michael Gordon. After the meeting we had in August, our clients took to heart the comments, suggestions, dialogue that we had with the board, and made significant reduction of almost half of the 1,848 square feet. And I'd like to invite Michael to discuss the particulars of that since he's the one who drew up the plans.
Visual reference.
Here, I'll hold it.
Thank you.
I make a good stand.
Yeah, and per your question, yeah, the house did get narrowed by several feet. The separation between the structures became greater. The side yard setbacks became greater. And like we said, we reduced the lot coverage to just over 15%, where 30% is allowed. We listened. We worked really hard. We sat down. We had multiple meetings, several glasses of wine, and really tried hard to come up with a plan that addresses all their needs and wants. And the reason the garage didn't get smaller, I think at the last meeting we discussed it, it was basically that stairway directly to the basement and the stairs that they wanted to have for the movement. As opposed to having an outbuilding, they want to be able to take all the furniture and equipment from the pool directly to the basement. So we felt that was a reasonable ask for that. We worked diligently with the client to reduce the square footage. We took space out of many rooms: dining room, great room, mud room, kitchen, primary bedroom, and secondary bedrooms. The previous design had a glass sunroom, which was removed, and the den was merged with that concept. We just think that this is a reasonable ask, and that we did really work hard to come up with something that we think is acceptable to the community, acceptable to the neighbors. There was, a concern that the massing, as we discussed, we think that the clipped roofs, the story-and-a-half look, and the dormers really soften the mass of the structure. And again, with only about 15% lot coverage, there's plenty of land around it. For example, the distance between this house and the house behind it is 160.5 feet. So that's a huge amount of backyard that doesn't impact anyone. And because it's a corner lot, we do have the ability, and like I said, even if you add in the pool deck, the pool area, the driveways, the sidewalks, we are just at 30% lot coverage for all the hard surfaces. With the side entrance garage, there's no there's no long driveway going 180 feet. So that also helps keep the impervious surface down to the minimum. And we'd be happy to answer any questions.
Questions for the petitioner? Oh, sorry.
That's all right. I just had a couple, and certainly won't answer any question, but just a couple, just summary, a couple points. As you know, this is a very large lot. It's 25,000 square feet. As the lot coverage has been mentioned, we're at 15.6, well within the 30% restriction. The house is not being shoehorned in any way. In fact, it's on a corner, and I believe it's about 27-foot distance between the house to the east and all setback requirements.
That's 27 feet between structures.
Right. All setback requirements have been observed. And this is similar in size to the home across the street at 1414 Mount Vernon, where a variance was granted in 2009. And I only bring that up because I know this board makes a decision based on the merits. But I think it's important to note that there's never been any complaint before this board that that house, which is larger than 3,500 square feet, in any way has impacted property values or adversely impacted the neighbors in any way. We also had neighborhood support with the petition that we presented to you at the last meeting. And I believe that we meet, as I stated in my letter of August 1st, to you, that we meet all 4 criteria. I'd be glad to discuss any one of those 4 criteria with you in your questions. And I think finally, we do meet objective 1.2 of the city's master plan, which for residential areas is to enhance the physical appearance and economic value of existing neighborhoods. And I think certainly this home will do that. I also, in closing, just want to thank Mr. Bohorsky and Mr. Murphy, who were able to give us some of their time several weeks ago when we were in the middle of when our client and Michael were in the middle of making a lot of decisions about the reduction to make sure we all were in agreement on how the measurements were being done and what we were doing. So I appreciate their guidance in this matter. So thank you very much, and we'll answer any questions now or after a public hearing.
Questions for the petitioner? Any? All right, seeing none.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. We'll move to a public hearing. If there's anyone to speak for or against this, please come forward.
Hi, my wife and I are here tonight. We live on Mount Vernon as well. We came before this board to get I think a 1-foot variance for our garage and a 400 square foot variance for extra garage space. But it's because we didn't have a basement in our house. So we had need for the appeal and the square footage. And, the neighborhood has a 3,500 square foot limit, and it going to such a large footprint, I'm afraid of the two houses next to me saying, oh my gosh, well, they did 4,800, let's try for, the full 6,000. I'm just a little bit worried to set a precedent that these houses are going to get bigger and bigger. We did a 5-bedroom, 4-bath house just under 3,000 square feet, and it's a nice house. And we didn't overpower the neighbors to either side of us. They're on the corner, so they're only going to overpower one house. But I would just hope that you would take into consideration that we shouldn't be setting such a large square footage based on 30% is a general, because it works on general on the smaller lots. But since our lots are so big, you can put a tremendous house on that will shadow, your neighbors indefinitely. So I would just hope you take into consideration that. And it looks like they're going to build a beautiful house, and in the direction that you oriented the house, you didn't put the house to the east, you put it to the west. So I believe they could get a consideration, but I'm just afraid of getting too large of a precedent. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Joan Cutler. I live at 208 Mount Vernon Boulevard. Thank you for hearing us all tonight. I just want to address one of the biggest lies that's been told here the last few times. This lawyer has come up, and that is that the residents are in support. We are not in support. I represent 3 different families that couldn't be here tonight. They are not in support of this. That's a major corner that's always been lush and beautiful. And there's, I thought, a restriction of 3,500 square feet. And now it seems that, if you start at 6,000 or 5,500 and come down to 4,500, then you can get it passed. And I feel the same as the gentleman before me. We are really concerned about the houses on these lots getting bigger and bigger. And we have said before that if it starts with 1, it's just going to go down the line. And, one of the things this family has said, the Clodes, when they've met with different residents, is how much they love this neighborhood and this residence. And then the first thing that happens is that somebody builds something so incredibly big, and it takes away from the ambiance, the up north feel of we're a dirt road. It's an up north feel. So I feel the same as this gentleman that just spoke. Please, if there's no hardships, why are we giving this kind of variance? And I thank you for your time.
Thank you.
How you guys doing? I am the neighbor behind 322. I am one of the neighbors that supports this. I like the idea of something going in. It's a little bit different. Doesn't seem like an outlandish plan to me. I understand the ambiance of the neighborhood, and I understand that I actually live on that dirt road. I mean, all I know is that there's an oil truck that comes by every once in a while and sprays it. You know what I mean? That's something that doesn't give me the up north vibe per se. But that said, I respect all my neighbors. I respect their ability to come in here and make their points and have their say in these types of things. Personally, being the one that lives right behind it, I'm at 322 West 13 Mile, living right behind these folks. I like the idea of something a little bit different going in. Doesn't seem like an outlandish footprint to me, and I do support it. Thanks, guys. And ladies.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Tom Amick. I'm at 405 Lexington. I'm in the house immediately to the west of the proposed home. From everything I've saw and understood, it doesn't appear that there's hardships that are met here. It's discussed here this evening how tremendous efforts were made to work diligently to reduce the size of the house, worked very hard to reduce the size of the house, yet the house request is still more than 30% over the existing guidelines. I was not here 2 months ago, but I received texts and phone calls the morning after the meeting asking from other neighbors that, oh, you're in support of this. I said, no, not necessarily. I know they're going to build a beautiful house, and I look forward to having them as neighbors, but I'm getting calls and texts the next morning saying you're in support. I said, where did you hear that? They watched this on the local cable or were here, and it was strongly implied by council. There is support to the west, and there is support to the east of the homeowners for this project. I don't believe it was said directly to the west or directly to the east, but anyone I talked to said it was absolutely implied to the west and to the east. The home directly to the east, at my last recollection, does not support this. I'm the home directly to the west. Brought a little bit of disgust into me that I was spoken for of something I never said. Certainly I can imagine if I was in your position, that's what I would have thought if you were told, homes to the west, accept this. I look forward to having them as neighbors, but I don't see that there are hardships to be met. It's still asking for over 30% variance. I believe the newest house on Lexington is at 304 Lexington, and if anyone's driven by there, it's a beautiful house. It's a monstrosity that is dwarfing the other homes and does not look one bit that it should be part of the existing neighborhood. So what other residents have said is already beginning to happen. So we are against this variance, and we hope that you would vote so. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay.
There. Good evening. I'm Dr. Wallace May Anderson, 42-year resident at 404 Mount Vernon. When this first appeal was heard, I sent in my objections as I could not be present. Rather than repeat these, I simply urge you to reject the current variance requests for 325 Mount Vernon Boulevard, which exceeded the zoning ordinances by over 45% on the first go-around, and then since then, apparently with no notice to the neighbors, the petition has been modified to decrease the dwelling size, but it still remains at close to 30% over the zoning ordinances. And lot coverage is not a part of the zoning ordinance. It's a fixed 3,500 square feet living space limit. My understanding from researching the history of the current master plan and ordinances is that neighborhood preservation is a top priority. The ordinances sets up the 4 criteria for judging hardship exemptions, and when I evaluate this proposal against the criteria, I really can't see how any of the 4 are truly satisfied. But, you know, definitions of hardship can be really fuzzy, so suffice it to say, I'm just going to focus on number 2. Granting these variances would not be consistent with justice to those of us current owners in the Arlington Park subdivision whose houses abide by the zoning restrictions. Buildings this size threaten the essential character of our community. and I just, this is not specific to this, but I just have to say here and now, the city's noticing policies are embarrassingly secretive. Presumably to restrict public participation, cities like Birmingham and Berkeley require signs posted at the sites to allow for true public participation. But notice of variance requests is sent in Royal Oak, legally, of course, to owners only within 300 feet of the site. This could be as few as 6 to 8 houses in a subdivision with our lot size. Notices are sent on postcards, which could easily be overlooked. They do resemble junk mail or could be lost in the mail. And I can assure you that we did not get a mail notice of that original variance request. And we're kitty corner across the street. That's way less than 300 feet. And as you might guess, I do go through our mail very carefully, so I'm not really throwing things out like that couldn't be noticed. Fortunately, we have a strong neighborhood network, as you can kind of see tonight, so I found out. But in the case of the non-compliant house being built on Lexington, the neighbors were totally blindsided. I'll probably take that up with a future date with you, the Planning Commission, and the city.
Ma'am, it's been 3 minutes. Can you
Okay,
finish?
I will wind it up. I'm also stunned that the petitioners can modify their original request and nobody gets notice of it. So what you have in front of you is something that only you guys have seen, and we wouldn't have seen unless we went and dug in the minutes, in the new preparation for this night meeting.
Thank you. Come forward.
Good evening. Thanks for letting me come and speak. I'm here in support. My name is Randy Vesper, 425 Mount Vernon. My wife and I have been residents on Mount Vernon since 2011. My wife, Molly, was probably one of the people in support that signed the petition. We do live to the west, so I guess I can clarify that. You know, we bought a 2-bedroom house, put on an addition, made it a 5-bedroom house, and we were in front of this board probably about 9 years ago asking for a variance for a garage to go in the back. And while we wanted, and we've had nothing but compliments, we had the same architect that did our house, do our garage. We get people that are walking by all the time, hey, we love your house, you know, love your yard, love everything, you know, we made it work. It seems like they put in a lot of time and effort to want to make it work and fit into the neighborhood. And, you know, I kind of had the same welcome to the neighborhood when we came for our variance. You know, somebody came and knocked on my door, sat at my table and said, I just want to let you know I'm going to oppose it. And they're here in this room tonight, and the zoning board saw fit to grant us our variance. And it's been brought up, these are exceptionally big lots on Mount Vernon. The ordinances are probably for, you know, much smaller lots, and I guess it's probably a blanket thing, you know, 3,500 square feet. I see 3-story homes going up on lots, small lots where bungalows were at one point. It's happening all over. So I'm going to trust the board in the process to do the right thing for the city, and if, you know, and support them. If you guys see fit to grant the variance, you know, like I said, I was in front of this board and I appreciated you hearing me out, and there's a lot of good things that have happened in the neighborhood. You know, the neighbor a couple doors down from me, he spoke earlier, he did a wonderful job on his house, looks great. You know, there's been a lot of improvements, and I want to see the neighborhood keep improving, and I have a feeling that should this house go through, that it'll be a good addition to the neighborhood. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Hello. Good evening, members of the zoning board. On behalf of Michael Parisi, I am here to present his statement. I've lived in the neighborhood for 31 years and adjacent to the petitioner's property. So the person that spoke earlier, we're on the east side of the property. I'd like to make clear my opposition to the variance request for the dwelling. These numbers are prior to seeing this, but 53% larger and the accessory structure 15% larger than allowed. While the lot can technically accommodate this size, the proposal disregards the purpose of our zoning ordinances, which are meant to preserve green space and the character of unique neighborhoods like ours. Allowing a house of this size will drastically disrupt the aesthetics of the neighborhood, and our community is sought after and renowned for its balance of homes and green spaces, yards and trees that create a sense of openness. And an oversized structure like this would dominate the landscape and dwarf nearby homes and reducing the natural space that contributes to the neighborhood's charm. It would feel out of scale and create a visual imbalance. To be clear, my opposition is not a personal attack on the homeowners requesting the variance. I respect their desire to make their home their own, but the size of this proposal would have long-term negative impact on the overall look and feel of our neighborhood, which many of us invested in because of its unique aesthetic. The delay from the August meeting without any changes to the proposal seems designed to discourage this opposition. The city's limited notification policy only informed residents within 300 feet, means many of our neighbors didn't even know about this request, and we need greater transparency. This proposal does not meet the hardship requirements for a variance and will negatively affect property values, and while there may not be a large number of voices here tonight, it is only because many were not properly informed. We're not against change, but this is simply too much. A house of this size will overwhelm the neighborhood's visual harmony and reduce the natural beauty we enjoy. Even though it's on the corner, it will affect the backyard experience of many neighbors, and thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. Anyone else?
My name is Soren Anderson. I reside at 404 Mount Vernon Boulevard in Royal Oak. I object to the petition for granting of variances as to 325 Mount Vernon Boulevard. The Planning Division's memorandum to this board, dated September 24th, provides a summary of the petitioner's modifications to the original proposal for a variance. The largest single reduction by the modified proposal in the excess of residential usable floor area beyond the limits set by the zoning ordinance is 346 square feet, achieved by converting the second floor opening to the great room to instead an unfinished attic space. This reduction exploits an exception to the definition of residential usable floor area. Reductions in room sizes on the first and second floor in the modification are nominal, other than for the atrium, which is on the south end of the first floor east wing. Neither the Planning Division's memorandum nor the elevation drawings of the structure indicate any reduction in the footprint of the building from which was originally proposed. I do understand now that there has been some restriction. The modifications of this from the original proposal, they sidestep rather than addressing the concerns expressed by the neighbors in the August meeting of this board. The petitioners have elected not to propose any changes to address the excess over the zoning ordinance's limit for the attached garage. This board should require a showing by the petitioners addressing the 4 requirements to grant a variance set forth in the ordinance, both as to the modifications to the excess of residential usable floor area and the original excess of size proposed for the attached garage. Good evening.
Anyone else? Going once? Yep, come on forward.
My name is Linda Tumala. I live at 3021 Helen Court, Royal Oak, Michigan, but I formerly was a 37-year resident at 425 Lexington Boulevard and a 63-year resident of Royal Oak. I've sort of had to adjust my notes since there was a change in the building. When the owners bought this property, it was their responsibility to know what the zoning maximums were. It is not the city's responsibility to help them make this change to get what they want. It's not a need, it's a want. The issue is not whether the lot is big enough. The issue is adherence to the zoning set in the articles for Arlington Park subdivision. I don't know where you, the members of the board, live, but I ask you to envision a house being built next to you that was twice as large as the one that you live in. Would you want a house towering over you? Would you want your once sunny yard to be in the dark shade all the time? The reference to the house, Mr. Cowan referenced the house across the street that was overbuilt. At that time, I was living directly behind that house. There was a small ranch house that was there with a garage. When they went for that variance, they said they were building another house with a garage because they needed an attached garage. The original one was not attached. And it was approved over the neighbors' objections. I was at that meeting. It was very interesting that it was not decided until there was a break in the meeting, and when they came back, then it was approved. Variances are for smaller lots, and just because this is a large lot does not mean there needs to be a variance in order to build a bigger house. Again, the neighborhood is lush, it's got greenery. If you've been down the street, you all know that. You need to reject this so that they can keep the neighborhood that they bought into, not somebody who wants to change it. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else? You may come forward.
Ann Williams, resident at 224 Mount Vernon Boulevard. If the city can arbitrarily allow some owners to break the rules and deny others, it invites influence and dishonesty and undermines the confidence residents have in their government. I appreciate that new buyers love the neighborhood and want to invest their money here, but that doesn't give them the right to change the neighborhood views the rest of us cherish. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Good evening. George Gomez, 2018 Guthrie, Royal Oak. I've been in front of you before, and I've also been in front of City Commission now, and I've asked them one simple question. We claim to be a welcoming city, and it seems that that's true of anyone that has something smaller, but if you have something bigger, we're not welcoming you. We're going to put a stoppage to your dreams and your ideas. We're talking about lots that are 3 times as big as what you've been seeing over the last couple of years growing in Royal Oak anyway. Whether it's a big lot or a small lot, people have dreams. And in this case, the real conflict is, and I've said this to the City Commission, you're applying small lot rules to big lots. And all these people want to do is come into this welcoming city and be welcomed and have more with what they've got and do more. I really ask you to put your prejudices aside, as you've done over on Hendry, and you did allow a house for 5,000 square feet and a 29-foot wide driveway. And I think you did that based on the fact that it was fair, it was honest, and it was upfront. No one's trying to sneak in there and change the rules, but we've been seeing this throughout Royal Oak anyway. This is just changing times. And I don't see any reason to hold these people hostage over the fact that we're putting small lot rules against big lot properties. Thank you.
Anyone else? Going once? Going twice? All right, 3 times. We'll bring it to this side of the board. Discussion and/or motions. Mr. Klatt.
Just have a quick question for Alex, maybe the petitioner too. I wasn't here at the August meeting, but I watched the video, and I heard some comments that there was limited notification. So I guess the question number 1 is, I know the city does reach out to the neighbors within a certain, I guess, diameter of the property, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And then number 2, as I'm reading the applicant's packet, I see a petition here with numerous signatures for approval. Maybe they're not on the same street, but there's numerous signatures here. And then while watching that video, I also understand that they did reach out as for a meet and greet with the neighbors too, and maybe only 6 residents attended that meeting. So there was outreach to have the neighbors come and see, right? Or to see your plans and understand your ideas for it. And the reason why I say that too is I think that discussion is helpful too, because when we talk about square footage, we often get caught up in numbers. And if it's 800 square feet over, 700 square feet over, but a talented architect like Mr. Gordon, and I've seen his work around town, he does great work, but those numbers can be construed a bit. Like, for example, you could take that same square footage, spread it across a lot, and it feels much bulkier on the street. That same square footage spread out, maybe north to south, can feel a bit different. So there's bulk and massing that go a long way to make a house feel like it's welcoming on the street. So I just wanted to make sure that there was some transparency with how we notify the neighbors in this regard.
Anyone else for discussion or motion? Even if you want to break it up? Sukin?
For discussion. A lot is made of the fact that this is a large lot zoning district. And when it was made a large lot zoning district, obviously there was a decision made not to make it a large house zoning district. Yeah, okay. So I don't believe that the fact that it's a larger lot makes any difference when you're applying this ordinance. And a mention was made of the master plan, and I would point to what I see there about preserving and enhancing the neighborhood character. And it says the purpose is to enhance Royal Oak's high-quality neighborhoods by preserving their existing character. And I don't think that this plan preserves the existing character. I've gone down that street many times, and it's so charming, and it's very woodsy feeling, and I think these large houses are destroying that. I'd also like to point out, read some provisions of the Zoning Board of Appeals handbook. And I went to it based on a colleague's suggestion that we're applying something wrong, and I do agree with your application. However, I've found some new things that I think we have to consider. In response to, first of all, the 4 factors all have to be found in order to allow the variance, and I don't think at least 3 of them are. And one is that there's unique circumstances to the property that would warrant this variance. And if you look at the handbook, it says the characteristics applied to the property asserted as a basis for relief must be common among all properties in the same district or vicinity. And this is a large lot district, and there's nothing unique about this lot when you're looking at the whole neighborhood. So I think a lot of these provisions don't apply. So I don't think I'm going to be for this.
Mr. Reddy.
I just want to say I support what Ms. Zukin just said. As is often the case, she said what I meant to say much better than I would have.
Mr. Wolf.
I'll just throw a motion out there. I'll make a motion to deny this as presented.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, go ahead, Mr. Wolf.
So I was going to vote for it the first time, I was going to vote against it. So I was going to vote against this variance the first time, and I'm in the same boat the second time. And for me, I live on a sort of corner lot where I get all the benefits of a corner lot without any of the responsibilities of a corner lot. And the first thing that comes to mind for me is when I see my neighbors, who actually used to be Mr. Klatt's place of work, but that's neither here nor there. I always never thought about them as overshadowing my lot or overseeing what's going on here, but that's because it was a commercial business. In this case, I worry that you put a big house on a big lot, then what happens when you have a small house on another another lot nearby. So for me, the practical difficulty is that you want a big house, and that's not something that, like my colleague Ms. Zukin said, that is not something we do. The other big one for me is that this was self-created. This wasn't that there was, a creek or something running in the middle of your house, of your lot, and so you needed to build bigger or somewhere else. This was entirely self-created. So I just, again, I think Ms. Zukin said it really well, and that I think the criteria, unfortunately, just aren't met.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Zukin, anything to add?
No.
Okay. Other comments? Mr. Klatt?
I won't be supporting the motion. I understand your comments about that, and I'd have those same concerns if it was a 60-foot lot and we were trying to squeeze that density. We had a case like that come before us a few months back where the house did feel overbuilt. But these are large lots here. We're talking 15% lot coverage. I'm looking back to a few cases from a few months ago. We had 1605 in Seta. We had an 796 square foot reduction. Hendry, that was 1626, and those are truly large lots. So in my opinion, like I said, it's not just the numbers. I also look at the proportions of the house, the scale, the height, how they broke up that massing. This isn't just a linear play across the street. They were able to break it up in a manner that I feel that it'll tie in. So it's not just a numbers game in my mind all the time. I think it fits right. When you actually look at the plans and digest them, it feels right.
Mr. Lineweber.
Yeah, I also will not be supporting the motion. I think that the hardship question has come up before, and I don't think that the fact that the applicant is here today asking for the appeal is by definition a hardship. And I think that when you go down that path, then everybody that appears in front of the board should get rejected. And I don't think that that's the intent at all. I do think that it depends on the particular solution and the particulars of the residents here. I look at particularly the street coverage and the setbacks as you're looking from the facade facing the street. In this case, the house is well pulled back from the lot lines, and they do have the benefit of being on the corner, so they can extend the house to the rear without overwhelming the street front. I do think that the approach to look at the shape of the house and the articulation of the roof lines, the fact that the house is designed, looking at all four elevations, is sympathetic to the neighborhood. And I don't, again, I'm not going to be in support of the motion. Thank you.
Mr. Reddy?
Yeah, I'll be in support of the motion, and I just wanted to point out that it's based on, I don't believe the applicant has met B and C, and B in the sense that I don't believe the variance will do substantial justice to other property owners in the district. We've heard many saying that they don't feel that's the case. And for C, like Ms. Zukin said, I don't think having a large lot in the large lot zoning district is unique. So that's why I'll be in support.
All right. Other comments? Ms. Zukin and Mr. Reddy.
Just to make sure we cover all those requirements, I don't think A applies either because the restrictions don't reasonably prevent the owner from using the property for a permitted purpose. They can still build a 3,500 square foot house and use it as a residence. D could apply. They didn't create the large lot. But you have to meet all four. And I would also add the conclusion in the zoning handbook that says Variances are not intended to relieve requirements of the zoning ordinance that are simply preventing applicants from doing what they wish. Instead, the Zoning Board of Appeals was intended to serve as a safety valve in those relatively rare circumstances where the application of the zoning requirements results in a practical difficulty. And I would mention, I know it was a surprise to a lot of people that I approved that 5,000 square foot house on Hendry, but that's a whole different neighborhood. And that was next to a huge church building, and there were a lot of huge houses on that street, and it didn't change the nature of the neighborhood at all. I think this is a whole different situation.
All right. Mr. Gavin?
I won't be supporting this. I was on the fence about this primarily because of the substantial justice question. In terms of, we've got a lot of the neighborhood is here and has submitted written comments that they are not in favor of this. But even with that, I think I still would have come down in favor of this variance, as well as just a quick comment on the self-creation. I believe that self-creation is really more of an instance where the work has already begun. And a good example would be that fence that we had a couple months ago where the work had already been done. The fence was over 6 feet when it shouldn't have been, and it was we ended up granting that one for, mercy really than any other reason. But that's the situation. Just preparing plans and asking for the variance does not make it self-created. And that was something that I was actually doing some research on, and I intended actually to speak with the city attorney's office and see about maybe getting a memo written on that or something, but that's an aside for another time. So I will not be supporting this motion.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else for comment?
You're looking at me like I have something
No,
to
no.
say.
Well,
yeah, I'm really on the fence with this one. I'm sorry. I'm really on the fence with this one. Still not sure which way I'm leaning, but I have probably a few seconds to decide that. I really struggle with the plight of the landowner is due to the unique circumstances of the property, because the 3,500 square feet requirement is the requirement regardless of the size of the property. So stating that the size of the property is a unique circumstance shouldn't apply in this particular case. So I'm leaning towards supporting this time.
And I'll just say that I'm really torn on this one. And again, I had to meet all 4 requirements. But I also see that this house would fit into the neighborhood, and this is a big lot. The neighborhood is beautiful. I too am a pretty much lifetime resident of Royal Oak. I am torn on this. I like how I think it's going to look. I like the way it's been situated on the lot to take in all those considerations. So.
All right. I'll be against this motion. While I am concerned about the overall amount of square footage, I think definitely I'm against this because of the garage portion. I think requesting 121 square feet on this size of a lot is for an attached garage under 1,000 feet is minor for such a large lot, and to disregard that because of this, I can't be part of that. The other part is I do believe it's not the applicant's part that the city had the 3,500 square feet for a large lot as part of hardship. We have Vincetta, we have here, and I forget the third place that we have large lots on, where you do have large homes that are, yes, above 3,500 square feet on them, and newer ones come before us, and we usually are nice and grant 20 to 25%. When they originally came here in August asking for 50%, there was no way in hell I was going to vote for that. Now it's close to 28%. It's a little bit over my normal threshold, and I'm a little toss-up on that. But the garage I'm definitely fine with. So due to that, I'm going to be against this motion. Mr. Wolf.
So I just have two things I want to say. I definitely respect the people that have lived in Royal Oak their whole lives, and I have nothing against that. Having moved to Royal Oak from out of state, I would say that whether or not how long you've lived in the city should not matter. Like I think one member of the public said, this community should be open to everybody. And I do understand why people are against change, and I just want to remind everybody that to judge this on this, whichever way you decide to judge it on the merits and nothing else.
Okay. One other thing I also like to bring up, and it doesn't matter whether or not we hold them to 3,500 or allow them to do up to basically 4,500. They can build as massive of a house as they want to look, and it doesn't matter that the rest of the neighborhood wants it to be more like a ranch, one story. There's nothing on ordinances that require houses in the neighborhood have to be one story to match the other one stories. So no matter what, they can build a massive house that's within the 3,500 square feet. So unfortunately, no matter what, we can't control how the designs go. So if there's...
And I would say I do agree with that. However, it's not, and I agree with you on that. It's more the architecture is kind of secondary, in my opinion, in this case. So.
No, I understand. Any other comments? All right, we'll move to vote. All those in favor of the motion, which is denying the variances, please raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Okay, opposed? Nay?
Nay.
Nay.
Okay, the motion does not pass. Is there now an alternate motion in the opposite or something else discussion?
I'll make a motion to approve both variances.
Okay.
Support.
Well, again, I already mentioned my points. I think I think the large lot here is the hardship in this case. And again, I mentioned it's more about design than just raw numbers in this case. I think the architectural team and the homeowners did a good job trying to disguise that massing. Like was brought up, like Anthony brought up, that same square footage could have been spread across the lot. In this case, it wasn't. I think they designed the house in an attractive manner that makes it fit. And based on some of the consistency in our past track record, I think this request is reasonable. And they did reduce the square footage that they came for the first time. I wasn't here for that meeting, but I did listen to the video and heard some of the comments that were at that meeting too.
I feel like I addressed a couple items already. With respect to the substantial justice, I really like my colleague's point about how it fits into the neighborhood, and I think it will look good. And I understand that people are opposed to this, but there are also people in support of it. So that does count for something. In addition, with the size of the lot, being the practical difficulty, I do agree that it's unreasonably being restricted and that it is a unique circumstance to the property. So for that reason, I'm in favor of this.
Mr. Moore.
I'd like to hear a little bit more on C, because the standard of 3,500 square feet, these large lots weren't an accident. I mean, the city knew they existed when they established 3,500 square feet. So how are we justifying that C is met?
I believe, and I wish Clyde was here because he would tell us, because I believe we brought this up before the Planning Commission before and saying, hey, we keep on having these issues. Can you please, one way or another, say it must be this way or give a little bit more relief for the large lots? And if I recall correctly, planning said, no, we have this in here for the large lots to come before you for the variances, and you can at that time be up to your discretion whether or not you want to grant it or not. So as much as we keep on having these come before us and we keep on asking for some more clarity, planning has yet to give us any more clarity than say, it's your job to figure that out.
And here's my biggest challenge too. We see this with parking too, right? What's the right number of parking spaces nowadays for developments? And it's the same thing with this 3,500 square feet. I mean, this is not really our case. I'd love to change this, but it's not we don't have the authority to do that. But when was this 3,500 square feet adopted? As architects, we design 10 to 12 custom homes a year. And it's hard pressed to find, to attract young modern families, it's not enough. It's good square footage, don't get me wrong, but it's simply not enough to attract a modern family in a good modern home to come to Royal Oak, in my opinion. It's tough. So in my opinion, the 3,500 square foot rule is not adequate. It should be changed. Lot coverage should govern.
I don't know about that. That's another discussion. Yes, Mr. Wolf.
So I disagree respectfully with Mr. Klatt. I think, again, I'm an urban planner. I don't know architecture. I'm going to be the first one to tell you that. But I do know that when an ordinance is written, you try to keep as close to it as possible. And I've learned a lot from my colleagues who are architects, where maybe 300, 400, 500 square feet, you don't notice it. And that's something I learned the first house that came in front of me while I served. But again, I think once you hit that 600, 700, 800, 900 square feet, then are you doing it because you want it, or are you doing it because you need it? And again, I just, for me, it seems self-created because one person wants a bigger house. I live on 1,000 square feet. I have 2,500 in theory I could go build, and my neighbors couldn't say anything about it. But if I went in front of the zoning board of appeals for 3,000 extra square feet, you would look at my lot and say, you're self-creating this. And I think there's no real difference here.
Lot width and lot size, that's a big difference.
And I just want to say, when we said 3,500 square feet, when that was written, 25, 35, 50 years ago, there was no way in Royal Oak we thought, and that was huge at the time. That wasn't what, Royal Oak's changing. I mean, the real estate market is changing. People want bigger houses. It's like, to think that we've had houses that were only 720 square feet that people lived in, that just doesn't apply anymore. So it's gotten bigger and bigger.
Mr. Klatt, are you amenable to an amendment to reduce the amount of square footage over?
I don't want to ask them to change
We have a
their
motion
design.
already on the table.
No, I'm just asking. It's no? That's fine.
No.
Okay. Any other discussion?
Can you clarify if the motion is for their original request or their new request?
The
modified request. Okay.
Yeah. As much as I'd like it to be a little bit less than what they've requested, I know from last time, if I vote against it, it'll automatically make everything void. So because of that, I'll be reluctantly voting for this motion. All right.
Just for clarification, it's because of the garage that you're making?
Yeah, definitely the garage I felt was acceptable.
So if that's the case, Mr. Klatt, would you be amenable to switching, to splitting up the variances?
I'm in favor for both. I'm going to leave it at that. I'm in favor for both.
Okay.
The board has a...
Yep, that's understandable, and go for it. All right. Any other discussion?
I was just going to say that I'm opposed again. I really do have difficulty seeing how this variance will do substantial justice to other property owners in the area. I mean, I think we've heard a lot of impassioned comments about how they feel this will not do them justice. And yeah, so that I will be opposed.
Okay. Any other discussion? No? Oh, you.
Sorry, just to weigh in, I think the architecture does matter. When you look at these solutions, think of a big gray box that, would have the same math, the same numbers, the same criteria that is in the narrative. But what you're seeing is a solution that was presented that I think is sympathetic to the neighborhood. and effective at reducing the visual mass of the house. So I think that that those things do come into play, and it's not strictly in numbers, but it's the aesthetic and the design. And so I'm going to be in support of the motion as it stands.
Ms. Masuki.
Just as to that last comment, we don't have any control over the architecture. If they want to build a 4,800 square foot house that looks different than that, they're okay to do that as long as they get permission. So, you know, I'd love to be an architecture overseer on some of these houses, but we're not. It's just the square footage.
All right. Any last comments? All right, seeing none, we'll move to vote. All in favor signify by saying aye and raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Excuse me.
Opposed? Okay, the motion carries. The variances have been granted.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Excuse me. And my computer has frozen with this large set. Okay, there we go.
Can't get back to the beginning.
It wouldn't freeze if it was just
Yeah, mine
broken
froze up.
up.
I was able to.
Maybe they'll finally break it up one of these days.
Jeez.
Can't get any.
All right, let me scroll down. I'll just read it off here. Case number 24-10-32 for whatever address it is. Take it away. Oh, here we go. 908 Oak Ridge Avenue. Thank you.
Thank you. The subject site is an interior lot. It's located on the east side of Oak Ridge Avenue in the one-family residential zoning district, and it currently contains a single-family dwelling with a detached garage in the rear yard. The lot in its current configuration contains approximately 80 feet in width, 120 feet in depth, and contains a lot area of approximately 9,600 square feet. And the petitioner is proposing a lot split in order to create two individual single-family home sites, both of which would equal 40 feet in width, 120 feet in depth, and 4,800 square feet in area respectively. The petitioner is proposing to demolish the detached garage located at the rear of the property, since it would then be encroaching into the proposed side yard setback. And they are also proposing to shrink the driveway width so it's not going to be encroaching onto the, I guess, proposed adjacent parcel as well. The proposed house, or the house itself, is proposed to remain, and keeping it would still maintain all applicable zoning ordinance provisions, primarily setbacks and lot coverage. Interior lots in the one-family residential zoning district are required to be at least 50 feet in width, 100 feet in depth, and contain a lot area of at least 6,000 square feet. But the zoning ordinance does also allow lots to be smaller than the standard ordinance requirements, if and only if the proposed lots are the same size or larger than at least 50% of the other developed interior lots on the block. And that's referred to as the compatibility provision of the zoning ordinance. However, in this case, when staff examined this with the other developed interior lots on the block, we had found that only 47.83% of the other lots had the same size or smaller width, and only 39.13% had the same size or smaller lot area. So it doesn't qualify to be divided under the compatibility provision. So with that being said, the petitioner needs two variances. The first one is to waive 1,200 square feet from the minimum required 6,000 square foot lot area for the proposed lots. And then the second variance would be to waive the 10 feet from the minimum required 50-foot width for the proposed lots as well. Thank you.
All right. Questions for staff? Mr. Clapp.
Just, Alex, one quick question. And so I assume the provision for the average doesn't really take into account the side of the street. Well, it does, but what I'm getting at is when I look at that'd be the east side of the street, like nearly every lot's 40 feet. I'll take that back. I'm looking at Property Gateway. There's a handful two that are 60, but every lot's almost 40 feet. So you're looking at every parcel on that block?
Yes, on both sides of the street, excluding, of course, lots that are not developed. which all of them are. So, and then we also exclude the corner lots as well.
Okay, so the corner lots are, because those are deeper, obviously, 120 feet, but, one's 35, 40, 40, 40, 40, 40. That's the challenge I see is that half these, or most of them on this side of the street are all 40-foot lots. But I get it's the bigger average. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? I do have a question for you. Is there any other lots on this street, even that are size that they could be split, even though they're not right now? Should this go ahead and get split?
I guess lots that theoretically could be split.
Yeah.
To my knowledge, based upon what we've looked at, no, nothing. Well, at least nothing that could be administratively split. It appears.
Right, because that's what I was looking at. Was that basically this is the only double lot on the whole?
There are other lots that are wider than normal, but
not wider. But this is the only one that's a double lot per se on the actual block.
There's one other.
Oh, there's one other? Okay. Maybe I missed that one. Okay, that's fine. When I was going down. Okay.
920.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Any other questions? All right. If none, then the petitioner may come forward and present your case.
Good evening. Thank you for having me. My name is Dave Mangum. I'm here with my wife, Molly. We live at 908 Oak Ridge with our daughters, Endela, Agatha, and Imogene, who's only 3 weeks old, so we've got a newborn. We're lifelong Royal Oakers, engaged members of our community. My wife's a second grade teacher at Oak Ridge Elementary, which is why we picked the street, of course. Just kidding. We're active in our parish where our daughter goes to preschool, and we go to the daycare nearby. So we are really invested in this neighborhood and this community. And our kids have really loved to get to know all of the other young families that are on our block. It's a really great place to live. We're here asking for variances which will allow us to stay in this neighborhood and accommodate our growing family. Our lot is a combination of 2 originally platted lots, and it measures 80 by 120, as we said, and we want to split it into 2 that are 40 by 120. The current home does sit within one of the lots that would be created and observes all of the bulk and area requirements. And we would be building a new 4-bedroom home on the lot that's currently vacant. We haven't designed the home, but know generally, the sizes that are there. And we would not come back for any additional variances. We're committed to observing not only the setbacks and the area that are required of the newly created lot, but in an effort to be equitable to our neighbors, we're not going to encroach on the setbacks that would be required of the larger lot. We feel that we can still build within that envelope that we would be allowed to today. And so, again, no additional strain put on our surrounding neighbors. And as we mentioned, we would be demolishing the garage that's currently on the site, in part because the structure is being compromised by a very large tree that's back there that otherwise inhibits some of our ability to do what we'd like to do with the current house that's there. We're requesting the variance because the kind of compatibility provision we feel doesn't accurately account for the character of the neighborhood. As we referenced, 9 of the 12 homes on our side of the street are 40 by 120 lots. If you look on the back side of our street, if that was to be the criteria of your contiguous block, it's 87% of the homes are 40 by 120 lots. The only reason that this calculation is skewed is because the block governed by Farnham and Oak Ridge is kind of an obscure shape, and so there are a variety of lot sizes there. But if you look at the fabric of the neighborhood, the setbacks are consistent on both sides of the street. So we feel that the provisions of the zoning code that would govern the home that we would design sufficiently protect for a home that is compatible with the neighborhood. I'm an urban planner by trade and training, and have a background in architecture. I'm really committed to the architecture of a home that fits in with the neighborhood. I think we need to do a better job of this in this city. And so I really want to build a charming home that can set a new precedent for how to contextually build within an existing neighborhood. Some of the other things I'll mention, part of the reason we want to do this is the lot currently is sort of concave, if you will, from years of not being developed. And so it retains a lot of water when we have major rain events. And the mosquitoes this year were really bad, and my daughter's kind of allergic, so she had just really terrible mosquito bites. We'd like to invest in the stormwater retention. We know that there are adequate solutions out there that would allow us to drain our lot much better without impacting the lots around us. We want to make that investment, but would otherwise find it difficult to do that, not attached to a home project. And then, I mentioned the larger tree. The layout of our current home would be difficult to amend to achieve the result that we would like. It would likely mean that we would need to move out of the house for a period of time, and having four kids that are 4 or younger would make that a big strain on us if we had to move out to renovate our current home. I understand that with any type of change, there's going to be some concern. We did write a letter to all of our neighbors describing our intent, why we wanted to do it. I do have 3 emails that I didn't get over in time that are expressing support, and happy to share these with you. These are just 3 letters, emails of support for our proposal, but many of our neighbors have stopped by to talk to us and have said that they support this as well. So I do feel that this is doing the neighborhood justice by putting another home that is on the same size lot as all of the others on our side of the street. We intend to take care of any of the things that could come from this, like the stormwater. And then, as I mentioned, and I put a graphic on the top there that shows there's really no difference between what we're proposing and what we could already do by right. The only major difference is just the number of structures, right? So there's no extra impact to the surrounding neighbors than we could already do. But it is our again, goal for this to be a very, very charming and aesthetically pleasing home.
Thank you. Questions from the petitioner? Mr. Cleve.
Maybe you already mentioned this. Do you intend to live in the new house and then sell the other one, or vice versa?
Yeah, we would live in the new house, and we're not totally sure what we're going to do with the existing house.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
And I also, real quick too, I assume you're not going to ask for variances for the new build, right? You would work within the manor.
That's correct. We would observe not only, again, all of the setback requirements that are there, but I think honoring what we could do today, because when you go lower than 45, right, you get a 12 foot combined setback, and it would be 15 with the 80. We intend to keep the 15 that would be there. So no additional impact again.
Thank you.
Other comments? Mr. Wolf?
Just to confirm, you have not talked to an architect yet. You're kind of waiting for, if you're waiting for the board to grant you a variance, if we grant you one, before you go talk to an architect.
That's correct.
Okay.
Ms. Ugood.
And the reason you don't want to just build a bigger house on a bigger lot is because you don't want the hassle of moving the family out.
That, I think it would be out of character with the neighborhood, right? A large home on the lot would be significantly larger than all of the other homes, which are within a pretty similar character. And to me, that wouldn't be doing justice to the neighborhood.
Mr. Reddy.
Could you tell us a little bit more about how you want to improve the drainage?
Yeah, so one of my neighbors is here. They've actually installed a yard drain on a home that's 4 houses down, which had similar issues with puddling. I think he can attest to that it has improved the hydrology of the site. Neighbors that are somewhat dependent on water flowing into that yard, that water still does flow into the yard. It's just there's a way for it to be absorbed into the ground. So that would be our intent, again, for it to be usable and enjoyable for us and our kids.
Mr. Clay?
I'll say one thing to consider too, and this is a different conversation. A lot of communities require civil engineering when you submit your plans. I don't think Royal Oak does for single family, but you could consult with a civil engineer and they'll help you work with the grid, either to move it, around the house in a swale configuration to the street, or maybe French drains, but you could work with the engineering department on that.
Yeah, exactly. That would be our intent.
Thanks.
Other questions for the petitioner? All right, thank you. We'll open public hearing. Anyone to speak on this case, come forward.
Hi, my name is John Bernthal. I live at 916 Oak Ridge, the house right next to the lot. When they bought this house, they paid a little over $300,000 for it. I'm sorry, when you buy lots in Royal Oak, you don't get 2 lots for $300,000. They're trying. They knew what they were going into. They knew the lot was undersized, and they still bought it, trying to get a variance. I bought my house. I went there. I looked. I saw that the lot next door was under 50 feet, so I knew they wouldn't build next to me. I had no problem with someone building a beautiful new house in the center of the lots, but that's not what they're trying to do. I have a house that's on a 40-foot lot, yes. I have 65 inches on one side of my house to the property line. I have 46 inches to the other. I have no garage. I have no driveway because there is no room for one. The lot has always, I sent all of you the pictures of the lot with underwater. Sometimes the water has gone from the back of the lot almost to the sidewalk. Where is all that water going to go? They have not even figured out where the water is going to go, and they already want a variance. I just don't understand how they can figure that out. The house is going to take up most of the lot. They want to put another driveway in. They want to put another garage in. There's going to be no way where for any of this water to drain. I mean, they have no hardship. The house they have is a beautiful house. They could bump out the back of the bungalow, add 2 bedrooms upstairs and a bath, and they could have their 4-bedroom house. If they want to keep the character of the neighborhood, they should keep it as it is. There's no reason to give them a variance to get 2 40-size lots when they have one lot that's 80 feet wide. The people behind the house also have sent you a letter. I'm hoping you all have read it, from 917 Maple Grove. They are also against this variance. Everybody in the neighborhood has had water issues, and this lot has always acted as a retention pond, and that's the way it should stay. And if people are having mosquito problems, it's because they don't pump their lot as they should. Previous tenants pumped the lot, no mosquito issues. The tenants now don't pump the lot, so there's mosquito issues. They come in, they spray the mosquitoes. They're not just killing the mosquitoes, they're killing the bees, they're killing the butterflies. So, I mean, that's not the way to go. Thank you for your time. I hope you will not give them this variance.
Anyone else to speak on this? Come forward.
Well, my name's John Respirski. I'm here on behalf of my wife, Ellen Respirski, and myself. We own 907 Oak Ridge directly across the street, and also 820 Oak Ridge within 300 feet of the property also. The matter that we are completely for the split of this house. My wife's lived in this lot for 24 years. There is a natural hardship that was not imposed by Woodward Avenue that has skewed the numbers that you saw on that other chart, in my opinion. The one half of the street is at an angle, enforced angle, from the Farnham because of the development on Woodward Avenue. So you have all these odd-sized lots up and down there. The lots on that side of the road are 40-foot wide lots, and the ones that are behind it are also. Now, as far as the correction to the drainage, yes, we did have a huge renovation on 820 Oak Ridge, and we had civil engineers correct the problem. Kieft Engineering did the engineering and was able to improve through the city of Royal Oak to have a yard drain and have it drain into the storm system directly on a gravity feed. And they're able to also tie in the gutters from the house and the hard surfaces. It is more of a challenge, and I know this from being a builder. I own Edwin Anthony Homes, and my wife's a patent attorney. And we really look at things objectively on this. And I have, to let you know, no alternative motives. Dave and Molly are wonderful people. This is a very special street, just like John and Dan are wonderful also. But it's special because of the people in the community on there and the structure. And Dave's intentions and what I've seen of him are true through there. And he's going to bring value and an asset to this. The water drainage, and from my experience in the 25 years of building and developing land and seeing what is on there, is not, it's not a swamp area. It's a puddle, just like the other ones. We had 4 lots that drained into our lot. We relieved it for the 4 other lots around it by what Kieft Engineering designed. And my time's running out, but thank you very much. They did not cause the hardship. This hardship was imposed on them, and they are keeping in touch. Thank you.
All right. Anyone else to speak on this for public hearing?
Hi, my name is Dan Theory. I live in 916 with John. I just want to say I watched 812 meeting. There was a lot on Arlington that was 40 foot. It was not granted, and I don't see the difference. And there was talk about being fair. You guys were fair at the end of that meeting. And it just seems like if that wasn't granted, there were no issues with water or anything, but it was a 40-foot lot, and it was not okayed. So I just want to make that point.
All right. Seeing that all the public has made comment, once, twice, 3 times, no other people here. Yeah. Yep.
Letters that other people have sent in for you opposing this, you have all read them?
Yes.
And you've all seen the lots?
Yes.
Photos I have sent?
Yes, yes. It's part of our thing. Thank you very much. All right, seeing none, we'll come back to this side for discussion and/or motions. Yes, Ms. Zukin.
I'm not ready to make a motion, but I do want to point out that there's 23 houses used in this calculation. There's 11 that are 40 feet wide. If there was a half of a house or one more house, it would be administratively approved. So this is a real close one.
And we've had that, that's why these come before us, because we've had those before always. And that's why this can make the thing of pushing it over, and therefore the next time it's just administrative. So that's the thing you really have to take into consideration when we decide this, is future implications. Any other comments? Mr. Wolf.
All right, I'm going to throw a motion out there. I'm going to make a motion to approve. I think that this one does meet all of the various requirements that we have to comply with. And I think also what really gets to me is that the 2 things get to me. First of all, that the applicant is not going to come before us again for another variance. He said he's going to, do things by the zoning ordinance and follow that. I think that's very commendable and impressive. And then the second thing is to just looking at the lot.
Actually, before we go, is there a second for your motion?
Oh, sorry.
That's all right. Mr. Clapp, seconds. Now you can continue. Sorry.
Okay, I just love hearing myself talk, I guess. So I just, and I think too that the other hardship here is the drainage. I really do think that, and without knowing the specifics of the City of Royal Oak's building code division rules, I can say, having approved other houses in previous jobs and previous lives, that you're not going to get a house approved like that without some kind of engineering that gets done. Like that's just, it's not going to happen. So I think I trust the engineers are going to do what they need to do, and they will ultimately solve the problem for everybody. So,
Mr. Clapp.
I think you summarized that well. I brought up my points earlier. I think just from the optics of walking the street, driving the street, looking at the old plat maps, they're 40-foot lots along this. I guess I personally don't see the harm of another 40-foot house on that lot. I don't see how it'll impact the neighborhood in that case. And drainage doesn't really fall under us. I mean, I assume that when they build this new house, they're not going to leave a swamp in their backyard. They're going to work with the engineering department and a civil engineer to make sure they solve that water issue. That's not really on the table for us to even discuss. But the lot width is, and again, I think Ms. Zukin brought up a good point that we were at that threshold. And I think if the optics of they're 40-foot lots. At least in this area, there's a couple that skew it as you go north at the corner in those areas, or I should say the south, 71, 60, but in the immediate vicinity of this, they're 40-foot lots.
I have an ordinance.
Other discussion, Mr. Lineweber.
Driving by this, the neighborhood, it is this 40-foot, a new dwelling there would be very much in the rhythm of that neighborhood. I don't see it as being an outlier. I know the numbers, it's so close, right? But it seems that a 40-foot wide lot would fit along with the rest of the lots that are there. I think the drainage issue is solvable. And again, with the right engineering solution, I think that can be mitigated and improved not just for this site, but for the neighbors that kind of drain into that as well. And I would encourage the city, if this does get approved, to take a look at how they would, help alleviate those issues for this site as well as others. So I'll be, I think, in favor of this. I'm, kind of on the fence, but when I drove by it, I see that the rhythm in the neighborhood is very much in keeping with 40-foot lots.
Ms. Robbins.
I have to say that when I drove by and I looked at it, number one, it does look like a 40-foot lot neighborhood. I mean, just by driving by and looking at that. And my first thing was, no, we don't want to lose any more green space. Why are we sticking houses in every place? But yet, this does make, like you're talking about the rhythm of the neighborhood, just putting another 40-foot house built on that area makes sense. And it is part of the neighborhood as opposed to maybe building a great big giant house there on the one lot. That does make sense to me. The water problem, I think that you have to address that to build a house there. Because unless you were going to build it on stilts without a basement, I mean, I don't know how else you could do that. This is not an uncommon problem that we see in certain neighborhoods in Royal Oak, and Berkeley too has the same problem. So I think by just even doing that's going to help the neighborhood in that sense. So I will be in favor.
Mr. Moore.
I am not in favor on this one. As was mentioned by somebody at comment, this is very similar to the one that we had last month and the month before. I mean, that could have been 3 40-foot lots or whatever it was. So, saying that it's 40-foot lots, in a neighborhood of 40-foot lots, it doesn't meet the threshold. And also, I don't see that it meets B on our requirements here of the variance would do substantial justice to the applicant as well as to other property owners in the district. And I think we've heard from people at public comment as well as a letter, and these are people immediately next to the property, and they're not in favor of this. So I will not be supporting.
Other comments? Ms. Zukin?
Well, I certainly empathize with the neighbors. I would hate to buy a house thinking I had a vacant lot next to me that wasn't going to be built on. And I do like to see more green space in a neighborhood, but in this particular neighborhood, I think it does go with the flow of the neighborhood to allow another 40-foot lot in there. So I'm probably going to vote in favor of it.
Mr. Gavin?
I was kind of on the fence, but I actually really like this plot you put together here, showing kind of the envelope you can build in, and like a house could be built in the center of the single lot, but it could also go closer over to the side and be just as close, even though it's still a combined lot. I'm not saying that you do that out of spite or anything like that, but I'm just, pointing that out. And then along with that, I do think that this is different from that case a couple months ago, and just pointing out also that our cases are not precedential and are not binding on our later decisions. But that neighborhood was very different. It had a lot of double lots. It had a lot of more larger lots than this one does, where it's so close to the line. It's really, in my view, the closeness to the line that it would have been administratively approved, coupled with the fact that I have a good feeling about how this the petitioner will build that house, although I would encourage when you design it to not make it fit the neighborhood still, because you could build a 2.5-story house and make it quite large, even still within the zoning restrictions that would apply there. But I would hope you would try and keep it within the boundaries of and the character of the neighborhood. So I think I will be in favor of this, although I was on the fence.
All right. I'll say my piece unless someone else had any comments. First off, comment, just because a petitioner says they're not going to come back before us before more variances of first lot split, doesn't mean anything. I've had that happen before, and I'm sure it'll happen in the future. So not to say that they're not honest, you can't take that into any account on your thoughts. I will be against this thing. I'm almost always against lot splits. The nice thing about Royal Oak is that you have the variety of lots. Sometimes you have the nice bigger lot, and sometimes you have the normal smaller lots. And that's what makes the neighborhoods have their character that they have, in my opinion. In this case, they have a one platted tax lot as it is, and if we were to split that, would now cause it to be two separate ones. So it's right now plotted as one whole thing. They're just liking to split it to get that other additional income by having two houses there, which I can't fault them for that. But that's what they're doing. By doing this also, this would also allow precedent for the other large lot, should someone want to buy that and split that, to automatically come before us. Not even come before us, just administratively get split. So by doing this, we would cause a domino effect, possibly, with another one. And then going through the variances, as Ms. Zukin pointed out before with the previous case, all should be met. In my opinion, this does not prevent the reasonable owner from using the lot as it is already. So that's one, that's not a hardship. That they brought this on themselves because they wanted to split this. It's not like this was the previous lots that came before us that were already tax ID'd split. So those two alone, they've brought upon themselves as wanting this variance. So because of that, I cannot vote to approve this variance. Any other comments? Mr. Gavin.
I do just want to point out that there's, according to that listing of the properties on the street, there is only one other lot that could be split into two that would be at or over 40 feet. So it's not like there's going to be a huge domino effect. There's just, but I just wanted to point.
No, I understand and I agree, but that does allow that lot to be automatically just come before, not even have anyone else in the neighborhood give an opinion. So you take away that opinion by doing this.
Yep, understood.
All right. Any other comments? All right, we'll move in To the vote, all those in favor of granting the variances as requested, please signify by saying aye and raise your hand.
Aye.
Okay, opposed?
No.
No. The motion passes. Your variances have been granted. Congratulations. Best of luck to you. Okay. I don't believe there is any other business, is there? No. So then, general public comment. If there's anyone here in the public that'd like to come forward for comment, you may do so at this time. Going once, going twice. All right, we're done. Any motion for the adjournment? Who wants to do it? Don't all, Mr. Gavin.
I move to adjourn.
Is there a second? Mr. Wolf. All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, we're done.
Yeah.
What?